Welcome on in, golf fans. Here's your boy Gsluke with our round 4 live stream for the Cognizant Classic. We've had rain over the first 3 rounds, of course, because I've been there, but plenty of birdies, a pretty jam-packed leaderboard, and what should be a fun Sunday showdown slate, and one that I think you're going to see some volatility at. PGA National has all that water, and with a lot of birdies out there on Sunday, I think you're going to see a few guys charge up the board. So looking forward to it. Going to break down what to expect from the golf course over there on the showdown slate, and towards the end, a look at some of the props over an Underdog, Prize Picks, and on Hard Rock Bet you might want to take a look at yourself. But either way, guys, appreciate all the support here. Welcome on into the live stream. Let's go ahead and talk some golf out there for tomorrow. So first off, cheers to everyone out there. Got a little bit of crowning. Had a lot of fun out there today. It was cooler, kind of like it was for Friday, which made for an enjoyable experience as a fan. It wasn't super hot, wasn't super humid or sticky out there, and that little bit of wind that they had made it really comfortable. So it was fun out there. Got to spend some time with a few buddies. And tomorrow, I'm actually going out there with my mom and my stepdad, who are pretty big golf fans themselves, and looking forward to following Minwoo, who we both have a bet on. They went out there, they put a bet on him this afternoon. I got him at 60-1 last night, and we'll probably follow him for a good amount of tomorrow. First off, welcome on in, James, to the live stream here. And he says, thanks for all the work that you put in. Appreciate it, James. It's easy to do when you guys show all that support, so appreciate you. Did I bring the rain tomorrow, or am I going to? Probably, right? There's been a little bit of a sprinkle the first 3 days. If I was a betting man, I'd be betting on the over on whether it rains or not. That's for damn sure. But welcome on in, whether you guys are out there. First question I've got for the chat tonight. We're going to have a few questions for the chat. Is who is your guy that's going to sun run tomorrow? So can't be a leader, right? Can't be somebody that's like -10 or better. Who is that chaser, that guy outside the top 10 that you're playing tomorrow that's going to move way up the board, right? Who's going to have that 5-6 under par round and finish in the top 3? We'll go through a few guys that I think have that potential, but maybe my number one target is going to be Rory McIlroy, right? The absolute king of backdoor top 5s, never really in contention at golf tournaments, and routinely, right, has those top 5, top 10 finishes. So if I was going to put my money behind that, it'd probably be Rory. But down in chat, that's your first assignment of tonight. Let me know who that sun runner is going to be. But let's start off with the golf course, which for today played directly into our hands with Showdown, right? You mentioned playing the AM guys, right? The guys that had more incentive to try and go low. And on top of that, that we're going to be playing in slightly better conditions. And honestly, this about one-shot difference between the AM and PM wave could have been a lot larger. There were higher winds in the morning than what I was expecting. In fact, I thought it'd be next to no wind out there. And around like 9:30, 10 a.m. local time, pretty much when I got to the golf course, I brought a little bit of gusty winds with me. So ended up playing a little bit harder than I even thought it would. And if we extrapolate that to tomorrow, right, we're probably going to see an even bigger edge. So I'm out there for Showdown. We'll talk all the specifics when it comes to strategy. Placement points are going to be a factor. The golf course, right, playing a lot easier than most years. You're going to see some low scoring out there. And with the advantage to the early guys, it puts a lot more emphasis on chasing those early low scores than trying to lock up those placement points later on. So you're going to have to try and find that fine balance, right, of trying to find a few sun runners early on and try and mix in a few guys towards the top of the board that can go out there and score in the harder conditions, because there will still be a few guys that shoot 4 or 5 under par towards the top end of the board, but there's not going to be nearly as many as what you see with the early tee times, right, with the better conditions. And it was kind of surprising that we still had, right, that nearly 0.9 shot difference, considering that we had higher winds in the morning. Towards the afternoon, I was there to pretty much the end of play today. And there at the end, there was next to no wind for at least the last hour, probably at least hour and a half, maybe even the last 2 hours of play. There was no wind out there. It was sub 5 miles an hour. It was absolutely perfect. Yet the PM wave still played harder than what we had in the morning. So that's why I was so surprised, right, that it was still a 0.9 shot advantage. But if that was the case out there for Saturday, imagine what it could be if the winds are truly higher in the afternoon. But unfortunately, we've got some true Sunday Florida weather. We've got the chaos that you'll see in pretty much all the weather forecasts down here, where some of them are calling for it to be just cloudy all day, relatively low winds, like we have here with the HRRR. But if we go over here to the NAM model, you'll see that in the afternoon, they're calling for torrential downpours, right? Actually, thunderstorms out there from 2 to 6 p.m. So obviously, Nick, right, was asking about that possibility for thunderstorms. Yeah, it looks like there is that possibility in the afternoon. So it's going to be interesting to see which model ends up being correct. But yesterday, right, this NAM model was the one that was a little bit more accurate than the HRRR. So, take that for what it's worth, right? That's the one that's calling for the thunderstorms later on. Whereas the HRRR model, right, doesn't have that same threat of thunderstorms. So this is going to be a slate, right, where you have to stay on top of the weather pretty much up until lock tomorrow morning. So I've got my alarm set early. I'm going to wake up before lock and make sure that I have everything squared away, because today the weather forecast flipped, right? If you woke up early, you took a look at that forecast, it looked like the AM guys had slightly worse conditions than what they were calling for overnight. And that's just a typical Florida day, right? Our weather forecasts down here are some of the most inaccurate that you have in the world. And it's just because of the volatility. I mean, we never know when it's going to rain. Rainstorms only last like 10 to 15 minutes down here. And they come and go real quickly, right? So that's why it's so hard to predict when it's going to rain. Even the wind, right? It's similar. It's hard to predict like that. So just, you have to know that heading into the slate. So if I would have to guess, right, we're probably going to see that same kind of advantage out there for Sunday, but don't play it blindly, right? That would be the little disclaimer I'd put on it, right? Make sure that you're paying attention to those weather forecasts, because the HRRR right now, right, they've got slightly higher sustained winds, slightly higher wind gusts in the afternoon. This NAM model, right, you can see it's not really calling for the wind to kick up, but they're not going to play through thunderstorms right over there in the afternoon. So there's actually a chance that this could get delayed into Monday if they have these afternoon showers, because they're going off of two sums off of hole number one. So in terms of your tee time setup, you've got the bottom end of the board, right, going off at 7:55 a.m. and your last set of tee times going off at 1:40 p.m. These storms, at least, looking over here on the NAM model, are coming in at 2 p.m. right now. They might not actually hit right until like 3 or 4, but there's no way they're going to finish that round, right, if they're teeing off at 1:40 local time. So the weather could be a factor. I hope it's not, right? As a fan that's going to be out there, if it does get delayed into Monday, I'll still be there, right? I have that luxury as somebody that doesn't have a day-to-day 9 to 5 to go out there and work. But it would be annoying, right, for a lot of the fans out there. So we'll have to see the weather, at least as of right now. I'm going to favor some of the AM guys in terms of chasers, but weather conditions are up in the air, right? Let's just say that much, right? There's no concrete weather edge that you're going to have for tomorrow. If I had to take a gander, right, the AM guys get a slight advantage, but I wouldn't count on that come tomorrow afternoon. Let's just say on that much. Let's bring up our DFS projections. Let's talk through some of our top plays, which for Sunday has a little bit of a different flavor, right, compared to the last two rounds. We've got placement points to worry about, which aren't the end-all be-all, but they are a factor that you have to at least consider, right? You have to consider the guys that are going to hold their position towards the top, and then try and find those chasers to mix in. So we'll talk more about that here in a second, but let's catch up on chat, see what's going on. What's going on, Hef? Says Crown and Coke for the win. Absolutely. It's just cheap. It's easy. I love it. Honestly, I never get tired of it. So it's my go-to after a long day. You didn't do good today. You had Russell Henley and Lipsky played a pretty good round. I had a pretty good day. So sometimes that's going to happen, right? If you're only playing a few lineups, right? Sometimes that's just how things go. But yeah, you just want to make sure your process is right? Make sure that you went out there, you were playing AM guys yesterday, not taking a lot of that chalk, because outside of Lowry, right, the guys up top didn't play well, right? You didn't have a lot of like -4, -5 rounds. The guys that went low, the guys that we played, we had a lot of winners over there. We got a few messages on Patreon. We had a few winners over there in the Discord as well. We're all guys taking chasers. So just make sure your process is right? Every time you use the right process, you're not going to win, but you at least want to make sure you're on the right track, right? So go ahead, look at your lineups, make sure you're doing the right thing, because a lot of us from the live stream and on Discord seem to do pretty well. Pavon could be the chaser. I agree with that. The guy's at -8 in general. I think there's a lot of chasers that can move up the board. He's definitely one of them. You took down the round 3 $5. You're hoping Tom Kim does the sun run. Congrats, Nick. I saw a message about you doing well. I didn't see the lineup that you entered, but just another winner that went out there and played well. So I know Nick has his process. I'm sure he leaned into some sort of weather edge out there for Saturday. And considering that it played easier in the morning, right? He probably played the same edge we did. So congrats to you out there, Nick. That's always a nice takedown, right? What was that, like 5, maybe even 10K out there for that contest? Either way, that's a heck of a takedown. Congrats. James says, random question. According to Data Golf, Collie gained in all their categories, get shot +3 with no blow-up holes. How does this happen? Well, let me look at the PGA Tour shots gained, right? So maybe Data Golf just has it incorrect. I would say that that's not possible, right? The scoring average, right, would have to be like 3-4 over par for that sort of thing to happen. But let's double check on it, right? Let's see what they have on the PGA Tour site. So if you go to his round 3 stats, he lost in every category but off the tee. That has to be a mistake out there from their end, right? Maybe you're looking at the combined shots gained, right? Maybe for all 3 rounds. But yeah, round 3 over there on the PGA Tour site, I have it up on the other tab. Yeah, he lost strokes to the field. Let's see. Novak stalled out today. Think he'll bounce back and climb up the leaderboard? Probably. I mean, stalled out, but he's still top 20, right? I mean, he was a freaking 6K play heading into the week. I'm far from worried about Andrew Novak, right? I mean, he's somebody who we took as a complete dart throw heading into the week. If you think a -1 round is bad from Novak, I don't really know what to tell you, buddy. That's kind of a weird take. Tom says, what is your go-to drink on the course? You just had your first transfusion. Canadian boy, really not a thing up here, and you were hooked. I love it out on the golf course, right? That's a really light, refreshing drink. My go-to, especially when I'm playing golf, is usually beer, right? Or some type of a hard seltzer. I try to get a little bit of hydration into me, right? Beer, seltzers, right, have a lot of that in it. If I'm trying to be a little bit more classy, let's say we have a cart, right? If I'm walking, it has to be one of those two. I'm not going to walk the course and drink hard liquor. Let's say that much. But if I'm in a cart, right, maybe a little Tito's lemonade. That's another refreshing drink out there. Crown and Coke is for after the round for me. It's not while I'm out there. It's too heavy, right? It's too much sugar, right, with that Coke and the rum, or not the rum, the whiskey, Canadian whiskey. I'm playing them for tomorrow. You have Pavon and Norn as outrights. Yeah, those guys at -8, they're there in the pack, right? Do you think they're too far back? You think they're a little bit too far back, I should say. Need around like Decky at Riv. It's possible though, right? Decky proved it's possible out there in round 4. I would say most years at the Honda, you'd have a much better chance of capturing that winner. Tomorrow, though, conditions don't look that tough, right? When this course gets windy, especially in the afternoon, like this course is known for having winds that kick up significantly. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I would say most years you'd be sitting pretty with guys there at -8. This year, I still think you have a chance, right, to go out there and bank a low round, but maybe a little bit lower of a chance, unfortunately. As a fan, right, I want carnage out there, and doesn't look like the weather's going to give us that. Billy Ho with a chat or chance, I'm assuming that you mean there. I think he's got a chance, right? Isn't he like -8 at this point, something like that? He's there at -7. He's probably not going to win the event, right? But if he had a spike round, he'd finish up there in the top 5. So over there in the showdown purpose, like over in that kind of lineup, I think he's an okay play. Definitely could bank a top 5. Not sure about a win. Do I have a strategy if I'm playing for a delay? So good question. Let me bring up the weather for you guys because we got to look at Monday for that. So if we're going to have a delay, they're not going to finish play, especially if they're teeing off at 1:40 p.m. It's just not going to happen, which means that the Monday weather is going to matter. And NEM forecast is typically what we look at for 2 days out. And looks pretty similar, right, in terms of your weather. So I actually don't think it's going to change very much if we have that kind of weather delay. The only real concern is that there's a ton of water coming down, right? I mean, look at this, right? They're calling for like over 2 inches of rain over that 4 or 5 hour period. If that happens, they're going to go super low right out there for tomorrow morning. So if you think there's going to be a delay, maybe you do take more of the chalk up top. But the unfortunate, side effect of that is a lack of leverage, right? Having trouble taking more guys. I'm playing a lot of chalk just because of the conditions, right? Like I think you're going to see a lot of those middle of the pack, like -8s, -9s go low. So I'm playing a lot of those players in my pool, and they have some ownership behind them, but they're not, the mega chalky players up there towards the top end of the board. If you think there's going to be a delay, maybe you play a slightly more, right, of the guys up there towards the top. So it's going to be hard to say. The PGA Tour, I'll say this much, right? PGA Tour set up tee times like this for a reason, right? They put the tee times out here at 1:40 p.m. local time because they don't expect a delay, right? If they thought there was going to be a delay in the afternoon, they would have sent them off of threesomes off of both tees, right? That would have been their strategy to try and avoid that. That's like my only pushback on that, is that the PGA Tour seems to be confident with it. But yeah, this NAM forecast, let's look at a few others here. So this Medio Blue, they're calling for thunderstorms in the morning, actually, which is I would say probably not likely, but they're calling for it. Icon model calling for a little thunderstorm towards the middle end of the day. GFS, early morning thunderstorm, potentially towards the latter end of the day. And then ECM models, a morning thunderstorm. And towards like when it's dusk, right? When the sun is going down. None of these agree, right? So it's going to be tough to tell. If you think there's going to be a delay, maybe you play a little bit more chalk. But it's like throwing darts, right? It's just like hoping you get it right at this point. It's unlikely Skins will win, but you never know. This year has had some of the crazy results. I agree with you there. I would say, yeah, unlikely that he goes out there and wins. 5K with the takedown, okay. You had Lipsky, Henley, Hoagie, of course. You always play Hoagie. Minwoo, Gim, and Keith Mitchell. Sounds like a good lineup, right? A lot of early starters, right, with those players that you took. I mean, Minwoo, right, was probably one of your later tee times. In fact, he was your latest tee time, right, of the players that you took. So good for that. You asked for a golfer who would climb back into it. Okay. Oh, I didn't realize what you were referring to, right? So I see what you're saying. You think Novak might get back into it? I'd like it. I hope so. That'd be sick, Zach. If he does that, it'd be really good for my DFS lineups. But that is a hot take. I'll say that much. He's definitely not one of your studs up top, right? But you never know. He's in position, right? He's -9. We liked him at this golf course for a reason. I think it's a sneaky play. I like it. So I didn't know what you were referring to before, man. Makes a whole lot more sense now. So in terms of our plays, there's going to have to be some chalk that you're taking, right? So with the conditions that look pretty flat, you still want to take guys that you think you're going to have ceiling rounds, but the placement point aspect might be a little bit washed out, right? Like the guys at the top end of the board are probably going to hold on to those placement points, which means you got to target at least some of those guys in your player pool. So like a Rory McIlroy, -7, right? He always has that backdoor top 5. As a player that I would consider taking out there for Sunday. Matt Fitzpatrick at -6, right? He goes out there, he shoots something like -5, -6. He's probably going to finish at the worst top 15, maybe even top 10. So over there at 10 grand, right? He's a player that can move up the board. Minwoo, he's a player I have an outright on. Also a guy at -10 that I think is at least going to get his name into the hat. Or he's at least going to get into contention out there on Sunday. And at $9,100, he shoots like -4, -5. He's going to get plenty of placement points, top 5, pretty much a guarantee if he has that kind of round. So I like him at like 22.5%. So it's one of the chalkier plays I'm taking. In fact, I think he's the highest guy in the leaderboard that I'm using in my lineups. So if that gives you a good idea of the types of guys that I'm taking, right? So it's not, I'm fading a Shane Lowry, for example, right? I'm fading the Austin Eckroats of the world, the David Skins, even guys like an Andrew Novak, right? These guys at -9 are just a little bit too far up the leaderboard for me. The guys that I love are the -8s and lower, the -8s, the -7 sort of players that really have to get after it to get up there in the top 5, top 10, that have to make like 6, 7 birdies, right, to have that kind of movement. And if they do, are going to be rewarded with some placement points as well. So Corey Connors, he's actually an example of the other type of player I'm trying to get to. So like a Jake Knapp, right, he's a chaser. You can say the same thing about Ricky Fowler. I know somebody mentioned him before as one of those chasers. The other type of player you might want to mix in, right? If you want to play one of the -13s, the -10s, go for it, right? You do that, right? I'm not going to do that for Sunday Showdown. I'd take a much more contrarian approach. The other end of the spectrum I'm considering, right, is really trying to leverage the field, right? Is trying to find a mega low-owned sleeper. And the other added benefit, right, to taking somebody that's lower down the board, right, lower owned, less people are going to take guys that aren't playing well through the first 3 rounds, is that they're going to have better weather conditions, right? The winds are projected to be lower in pretty much all of the forecasts out there. The storms might change things up, right? I know all of that, but the guys going off tomorrow morning, we can almost guarantee are going to have good conditions, right? Maybe the guys going off later get that break tomorrow morning, but the guys going off tomorrow morning, we know for sure right, are going to have good conditions. So guys like a Corey Connors, you can not only get at low ownership, right, try and get that game theory angle, but you can also, know and be confident that they're going to be playing a golf course that's not going to have that much teeth to it. So -2, $8,100, a guy I liked heading into the week, would make sense at sub 10% ownership. I like Ricky, like I mentioned, -8. I still got him at sub 10% ownership, which is pretty crazy, all things considered. It's because of all the guys at -8, by the way. There are I forget, let me count how many are exactly -8, but there is just such a bunch leaderboard at the top that the guys that are only like 4 or 5 shots back are lower owned than they usually would be. I'm out there for Sunday Showdown slate. So to give you an idea, there are 15 guys over there at -8, which is unheard of, right? We don't have 15 guys that are just one shot off the top 10 ever. And all those guys have to do, right? There's 15 players in that bunch is shoot -1 and get into the top 10, right? And on top of that, right, the guys at -7, they shoot 2 under par right there in the top 10, right? The guys at -6, they shoot -3. They're up there in the top 10. It's a much more condensed leaderboard than what we're used to out there for Showdown, which is why you're going to see a lot of volatility tomorrow. You're going to see guys that steal placement points with low rounds. Those are the guys I'm looking for, right? Not so much the guys that are already up there at the top. Doug Gim, another chaser I like at $7,400, also sub 10% owned. KH Lee, I've got him at 6.5%. There are just so many -8s down here, right? You've got Ben Silverman, who a lot of guys will want to get to after his low round. You've got Skins, right? 16.4%. David Bridgman, right? -10. He's 10.4% owned. There are just a lot of options down here towards the top end of the board where you can just kind of take the guys that fit the golf course the best, right? Maybe a lot of your leans heading into your main slate that are in position to move up the board. So that's what I've done, right? I think Corey Connors, right, would be a really good example of that, of a player that I'm just taking a shot on having a good round on Sunday without pressure, right? He doesn't have to worry about making bogeys. He's already towards the bottom end of the board, but he has all the upside in the world if he can go out there and shoot something like a -5, -6 round, right? For Corey Connors, that might push him up there into the top 20, maybe the top 25. All the birdie points that he's going to accrue could very well get him into those optimal lineups. So that's the way that I'm attacking the Showdown slate. Let me see if there's anyone else to go out there and point out. Yeah, one other play I want to point out before we hop over to the prop side is a Parker Cootie, another chaser that I would take there at -8. His ball striking, I watched a lot of him out there on the golf course, was pretty on point, right? He's a relatively long player, really good iron player when he's playing well, and played here last year, right? Had that experience, is getting a much better result this time around. And he's only 5.3% owned, right? I would rather play Parker Cootie than a double ownership guy in like Jacob Bridgman, right? A guy who's twice the ownership. David Skins, right? almost 4 times owned, especially in like higher dollar stuff. Skins might be like 20-25% owned. I'd rather take the shot on a Parker Cootie, right? A kid in position, right? Guy who goes low, right? Wins Corn Ferry Tour events than the old 42-year-old, right? That has a whole lot to lose out there. Because he's not even on the PGA Tour, right? He's a Corn Ferry Tour player as of right now. I'd rather take the shot on a Parker Cootie. So great story. I kind of hope that David Skins proves me wrong, right? I hope he does go out there and, shoot someone like -3, -4, potentially even win this event. Just a good story, right? It's hard to root against somebody like that who's been a grinder their whole life, but it's unlikely, right, that he goes out there and does that. Right? I'll just say it right now, right? It's highly unlikely that happens. I'm much more willing to take these guys at lower ownership. You don't have to invest nearly as much exposure into them to go out there and get over the field. David Skins, for example, you'd have to play in like 30-35% of lineups to try and get leverage, whereas Parker Cootie, right, you play in 10% of your lineups and you're over the field there. And you can go out there and try and leverage against some of your competition. So that's how I would handle the Showdown slate. I would avoid a lot of that chalk up top. If you're going to play any of it, just pick and choose maybe 1-2 pieces that you want to add to your player pool. So my chalk delight out here for Sunday is going to be a player like a Minwoo, right, at 22%, and then like a Rory, right, at 25.5%. Outside of those 2 players, I think there's like 1, maybe 2 other players, and I'm taking at over 10% ownership. Let's say 15% ownership, right? Only 1 or 2 guys that are over that 15% ownership mark. I'm going out there and being extremely contrarian. So It's trying to find the right chasers, right? Trying to find players like a Matt Fitzpatrick that can go out there and have a really good Sunday and find some sort of payoff when it comes to their placement points. So that's how I would attack your showdown slate. I don't think we have to see that much when it comes to lineup construction. I'll bring up Draftkings for a second, but if you're going out there and you're adding, I'd say at least 3 chasers into your lineups, you're going to be just fine. So just to give you an idea of how that would work, they give you guys some of the chasers up top, right? Maybe we go here, we throw a Jake Knappen up here in the 9K range. Let's throw Russell Henley. Maybe you throw Rory into this kind of lineup. You throw these 3 chasers in, right? They're not extremely low owned, but when we throw in 1 or 2 more, right, especially when they come to value plays, we can make this kind of thing work. So just in terms of salary, right, taking Rory is probably not doable in this kind of build. So maybe we drop down here, right, and take a Tom Kim instead. But in terms of our value plays, right, this is where we try and get different. This is where, we take a chaser that's going to be low owned. So we talked about a few guys before. Let's see. Who's a -8? Gsluke, right, was only like 6.5% owned. You throw him in there, you're getting plenty of leverage there, right? 93.5% leverage out there to the rest of the field. You go here in the 7K range, you try and find a similar type of play. Maybe you go over here and you take a Ricky Fowler, right? He was also sub 10% owned. This sort of combination, right? You don't have anyone here that's a terrible play, right? They're all up there in the top 26, but because you're not taking the guys that are 25, 30% owned, you're going to have pretty much all the leverage you're looking for. And if you're playing in a large field GPP, if you're playing in a contest with over 5,000 entries, maybe you do force in one player that's a true pivot. And by a true pivot, I would say somebody that's outside the top 20, top 25. I'm heading into the last round, and you're going to be good to go, right? And that player that's a true pivot is probably going to be sub 5% owned. That's all you need to go out there and get different. You don't have to, make this rocket science. You don't have to pivot at all 6 spots. You just have to be cognizant of ownership, right? Like, for example, if you're starting with Shane Lowry, your second man in is Eckroat, and for a value, you're like, I'm going to lock in David Skins early. This lineup's going to be nearly impossible to build. So just by avoiding some of those ticking time bombs out there in the top 10, you can find yourself building lineups that are pretty easy to put together. Let's check up on chat afterwards. We'll talk some props. So let's see what we're going with here. Look out for Ricky. I agree with you. I predict Shane Lowry will have a minimum 12 pints of Guinness if he wins tomorrow. I would take the over on that. Yeah, minimum 12. I agree with you. You would be playing Rory if he only had to drive the ball. He's still playing well in the other categories. He's more than just a good driver of the golf ball. So I understand the sentiment. He's definitely the best at driving, but to say that that's all he does is definitely, I would say, a little bit of a lazy take, right? He's number 1 in shots gained off the tee, but still gaining in the approach play. I get it though, right? He's a frustrating cat, that's for damn sure. Thanks for your AM Showdown discussion last night. You came in 11th in the large field $5. Keep up your insights, fully appreciated. You got it, Howie. Appreciate you. Congrats on that takedown. That's a pretty good score yourself. And let's run it back for Sunday. So if you're just joining us now, Howie, right? Same kind of thing, right? Slightly lower wins in the morning than the afternoon. Try and lean into that. But like I was saying, with the placement points, you've got to try and take some chasers. So find some chasers, add them into your lineups, take a few guys down there at the bottom of the board, and you can feel good about your lineups. The only things to avoid, right, is the 2 extremes. Do not take all chalk and do not take all pivots. I see people all the time. They're like, oh, you could pivot at all 6 spots and get away with it. It usually doesn't work out, right? Like golf ownership, the golf public in general is getting a lot more educated, is getting a lot better at playing PGA DFS. There are oftentimes a lot of chalk pieces that get there. So like, just don't completely discount the guys that are getting that ownership. In terms of props out here for Sunday, I've got some averages to bring to you. So let me go ahead and find the averages and bring up the screenshot for you guys. So let me go ahead and save this image, and then I'll bring it up. Go. Let's bring it up in Finder. Wish there was an easier way to do this, but not quite at this point. All right, and let's share our screen. So the average prop wise, and if you were just here for DFS stuff, still appreciate you guys. If you're heading out of here, go ahead, smash that like button, and best of luck out there for your contest tomorrow. I'm still going to talk props, still going to go through Underdog, Prize Picks, and Hard Rock Bet to try and find some value. But if you're a DFS only player, understand that. If you're on your way out of here, go ahead, smash that like button, and let's have ourselves a Sunday. But in terms of our prop averages, right, scoring average was slightly better than one under par, which is 69.94. Birdie a better percentage. We had a 3.94. Birdies are better per round. 2.53 in terms of bogeys or worse. Greens regulation was slightly under 12, right? 11.84. And then your fairways was just ever so slightly, right, over 9 fairways per round. So these averages were, I would say, pretty in line with what we saw the first 2 rounds. Green and regulation percentage slightly went down, all right, compared to rounds 1 and 2. And your fairway percentage also minusculely went down. So I think it was like 9.2, 9.3 out there for Thursday, Friday. Green and reg average, I think it was like 11.9. On Thursday, I think it was like 12.3. It was a little bit higher there. But these aren't really unexpected, right? You'd expect the averages to go down as the course gets harder, especially as they go out there and use back pins, more difficult locations to access. So that's not really all that surprising, to say the least. So those are the averages. Those are worth noting before we go out there and look at each board. So talking of which, let's take a look at the underdog board. So that'll be the first piece of exposure that we look at here. And what I want to start with is some of the strokes over here, which for PMT times, I'd be looking at some overs, but I think the safest plays out here for Sunday are actually going to be some of your early tee times. I want guys that are going to play out there and what we know are going to be next to perfect conditions and that we're not really going to have to worry about the weather with, right? Those PMT times, right, if there's no weather, if there's no delay out there in play, might have to play in higher winds, right? We never know how Florida weather is going to be. We might have slightly higher wind gusts out there in the PM wave. That's the general trend when it comes to Florida weather. Usually the PM wave gets the short end of the stick. If that ends up happening, right, and there's a lot of volatility with that weather forecast, it could go sideways real quickly, right? Or there could be a delay in play, and those guys could go out there and end up with the best conditions of round 4. So I think the smart play, right, maybe the safe play right out there for Sunday is to take the AMT times, right? To take the guys that are going off early and try and remove as much of that chaos, as much of that unknown as humanly possible. So let's go through this. Let's try and find some early starters that we can potentially target. Got to get a little bit of the shrink in me. I'm getting a dry mouth like crazy here. And let's scroll through the board. Let's just do a little gander through this. So you've got some AMT times at 4 birdies. That seems like where they probably should be. 4.5 on a Chris Kirk seems a little bit high, but he is there at a 1.1x. So clearly, right, they're leaning towards the under. Let's find a few more AMT times. A lot of these guys are starting late, which is kind of unfortunate, right? If we're trying to take the guys starting before the chaos. You got like Benny in at 4.5 birdies. That seems a little bit high. You got holes 15, 16, 17 strokes. So it's a par. Let's see if I fixed that. All right. Hopefully you guys can hear me. My mic unplugged there for a second. If you guys can hear me, let me know down in chat that I went out there and fixed it. But they added these hole 15 through 17 strokes. So they've got them at 10.5. That's the bear trap, obviously. So they're trying to, lean into that a little bit. Typically, the bear trap plays hard. Typically, I'd be looking at overs over there at 10.5. But unfortunately, bear trap's playing a lot easier, right, with the receptive conditions and the relatively low wind. So thank you for letting me know, Steven, that I'm back. Appreciate that. It's my mic cord here. I still haven't replaced it after all this time. It's getting to about that time, right, where we need to make that change. So appreciate you letting me know that. So we've got those hole 15 through 17, at least interesting looking at that. Let's find a few other things. So 10.5 fairways is definitely a little bit high, even for a Tom Kim. You get 9 fairways for a Rose. So at the field average, players like a Keith Mitchell at 10 fairways, which is a fairway higher than the average. Have to say that makes sense, though, for Mitchell, who's a relatively accurate driver. We've got Rory just slightly over the average for fairways. If anything, I'd lean under, but probably not enough value to go out there and play it myself. They've got his birdie line out there at 5 birdies, which is also probably a little bit high, right? Should probably be at like 4.5 birdies. Austin Eckert at 70 strokes. I'd imagine Prize Picks probably has him at like 70 and a half. Maybe still at 70, but I'd imagine probably 70 and a half. Matt Fitzpatrick at 4.5 birdies. I also probably think he's at 4 over there on Prize Picks, but you never know based on their pricing. Maybe they're doing something different this time. Minwoo over here at 4.5. They've got his strokes. They had it at 68.5. I saw that that was removed, so I'm guessing that they probably bumped that up. So let's see. Is he 69 strokes now? His strokes prop isn't even up actually, so that's crazy. They just took that off the board entirely. But let's keep going through this a little bit. So you've got 9 fairways, 13 greens out there for Matty Fitz. All right. JT Poston, 9.5, 13 greens. 13 greens is a little bit steep, especially for JT Poston. So that's at least something worth noting. 8 fairways for Benny Ann. That seems a little bit low. He's not a very accurate driver, right? So let's at least get that out there. But he's a whole fairway lower than the average. So again, just worth noting, right? Worth putting in the back of our mind, I should say, before we hop into this. Shane Lowry, let's look at his props, where he's the leader, right? 13.5 greens, 10 fairways. I would say that the green prop is probably a little bit high, right, out there for Shane Lowry. Fairway prop, I'd say is pretty accurate. He's an accurate driver, so I understand why he'd be out there at 10, a little bit higher than your average. Ricky Fowler at the field average is something you'd have to lean under on, right? He's not a very accurate driver of the golf ball, so just something to consider, right, for when we go over here and put a slip in. 68.5 strokes for Henley, like that's a little bit low. Right, that's another prop that I'd consider taking an over on. So let's once again just remember that one. Jake Knapp. Yeah, those projections seem pretty good actually on Jake Knapp. Let's look at Cam Young. 13.5 greens is probably a little bit high. This strokes prop is also probably a little bit low over there at 68.5. Chris Kirk, we've got pretty accurate projections. I think if anything, 4.5 birdies is probably a little bit too high. Over here with Corey Connors, also pretty accurate projections. If anything, his green prop is maybe just 0.5 too high. This Hostler, 0.5 too high over here with the greens. Rest of them look pretty good. And then this David Skins guy, like, I don't want to root against him. Like, I feel so bad, right, rooting against a guy with such a good story. But he's probably going to choke on Sunday, if we're being completely honest. So if I was going to take anything, I'd probably take his over on bogeys. That's probably the prop that he's got the highest hit rate for. The average for bogeys was 2.53 per round, and he's playing in the last group, right? He's got all that pressure on him. He's probably a player that doesn't make a lot of pars out there anyways, right? As a Korn Ferry Tour player, it's a little bit worrisome for David Skins. Let's say that much. So those are a few props that I'm leaning on. Let's I suppose try and find a combination to work with. And up here in the top right, I don't know if you guys can see my balance, but we have what is it, $6.50 on the bankroll. That's because of the free champions mode. So if you're down here in Florida, probably withdraw all your money, but you can enter free slips and go out there and win money. So if we went out there, we hit a 3-man, we had that 5-man par 3 card that we went out there and hit 3 and pushed 2. So that was pretty sweet. The slips that we entered here on stream were not good. So we're going to try and bounce back here, right? And try and find some combinations to work with. And this time, right, find some green out here for the live stream. If you guys have a way to go ahead and give me an idea of what we got for a prize picks board, that would be super clutch too. So obviously down here in Florida, they completely banned it. And if you're down here in the state, you can't even bring up that. So obviously I would do that if I could, but I'm streaming. I need all the bandwidth that I can, and I can't use a VPN, right, to go out there and do so, right? Or else the speeds of the stream would really go down. So if anyone out there has access to prize picks and can give me an idea of some of the props, if you're in the Discord, if you can throw a screenshot down there, that would be absolutely perfect. I know we had somebody yesterday that went out there and did that. Or if you're just down here in live chat, give me an idea of some of the lower props, right? Some of the lowest strokes props and some of the higher ones. And same thing for birdies, right? The higher birdie props, some of the lower birdie props. And that'll give us a good comparison between the two sites. And it's so stupid how they do it. But like, why can't the people down here in Florida even look at the prize picks board? It just seems like a little bit of overkill, right? You can look at the Draftkings odds, right? Even if you aren't in a legal betting state, you can look at what they have for odds. But for some reason, prize picks just completely pulls the plug out there. It makes it impossible to access. Alrighty, so if we're going to take fades here, and we're probably going to take a fade or two out here for the slip that we enter, it's going to be for guys going off in the middle to later half of the day. Again, just assuming that there's probably going to not be a weather delay. That's the only thing that we can play, right? If there is a weather delay, there's not much we can do about it. So if we need to get a fade, right, we'll take guys going later on. But the smart play is probably to take the early morning guys. So what I'm trying to find here are guys going off before like 10:30 a.m. The reason why I say before 10:30 a.m. is those guys are going to finish most of their round, and they're going to be playing in next to no wind. I mean, if they're taking off at like 10 a.m., there are 6 mile an hour sustained winds. If we look at HRRR, which is probably the most accurate wind-wise, they're starting there. It's 4 mile an hour wind gusts, right? Those storms come in at like 2-3 p.m. local time. By the time they're finishing, they're going to finish right around when those storms come through. It's only 8 miles an hour of sustained wind. So that seems like the kind of player that I want to take for Sunday. JT Poston would fit that for sure. The thing with JT Poston, right, is that a lot of these projections made sense, right? I said, if anything, I'd take his under on greens. I probably want to avoid that just because he has, such a good go of it when it comes to the weather. But what is something we could take? So just based on my first look here, maybe an under on bogeys. I want to bring up the PJ Tour site and look through some of the stats right now before we go out there and fire in any exposure. But JT Poston, at least if my memory serves me correctly, is not a half bad bogey avoider. I don't think he's a lead in the category by any means, but I don't think he's terrible in the category either. So I've got the PGA Tour site up. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and let's see how he did it last year. So I've got 2022, 2023 up, and let's find his bogey avoidance stats. So JT Poston was number 71 on the PGA Tour when it comes to bogey avoidance. That's well above average, right? The average on the PGA Tour was about 16.18%, and he only made bogey in about 14.78%. So with the 2.53 average, he would certainly project a little bit better than that average. And it's worth noting that the AM bogey average was lower, right, than what we had in the afternoon, right? Over there in the PM hours, the winds kicked up, right? The scoring average in general, right? If we go over here to data golf, was worse in the afternoon than what we had in the morning. So the guys like JT Poston, right, that are starting before any of that chaos are probably playing an easier golf course. The only downside with JT Poston is that he's not playing as well, right? He's not having the kind of week that we're hoping for. So let's go down here. Let's see how he's playing, right? Let's do a little bit of a double check on how he's getting it done. So he's gaining with the flat stick, very typical. Gaining off the tee, so not putting himself in horrible positions, but losing with the approach play and around the green, which I would say is a little bit atypical, especially of late for JT Poston. In terms of today, right, lost nearly a stroke. That's why he went out there and only shot, I guess -2 is not a horrible round, all things considered. But out there for Friday's action, right, was not very good around the green. That was his main gripe there. And then in round one, he lost with the putter. So looking through this, I don't know if it's the worst stat profile, right? Like his only bad round on approach, right, was really out there on today's round, right, when he lost nearly a stroke. It's just been something every single day, right? He's not been sharp in all 4 categories, right? Day 1, it was the putter. Day 2 was around the green. Day 3, right, today, it was the approach play. And he's still -4, right? He's still made the cut, right? He's, I know, not up there in contention at this point, but that might not be the worst prop to take. So 4.5 birdies just seems a little bit high. So I probably wouldn't want to take that. The other prop to consider would, I guess, be an under on strokes we could take for JT Poston, or even an over on fantasy score. So he's definitely going to be a player, especially based on the stat profile we were looking at, that I'm considering out here for Sunday. Is just trying to find the best value. So let me run his numbers right now. If he makes 4 birdies, he makes 2 bogeys on the day and shoots -2. I'm going to see if he could cover this fantasy score prop. So 4 birdies. Let me bring up the numbers. It's always hard to remember how they do this because it's different compared to what they have for other fantasy sites. So in terms of a -2 round, if you made 4 birdies, that'd be 16 points out there with his birdies. -2 is an extra 2 fantasy points, so that puts him up to 18. If he makes 2 bogeys, well, that's minus 2.4 points, right? So that's 18 minus 2.4. That would be 15.6 points. And then we have to add in the pars. So that would be 12 pars. And let's do this on the calculator because I don't want to multiply by 11 in my head. So that would be 12 pars multiplied by 1.1 because that's what you get for every single par. So that is 13.2 points out there for his pars. And then that 15.6 that we were talking about before, right? And I think that's like exactly his projection, if I remember correctly here. So yeah, right. They've got him at 28.85 points. So if he goes out there and he shoots -2, right, with 4 birdies and 2 bogeys, he's not going to cover this projection unless he has a back-to-back birdie, which if we go ahead and look at some of the scorecards, there's not really a good spot for it, right? All the par fives are spread out, right? All the really easy holes aren't back-to-back. And if you're going to have a good chance at going back-to-back, right, and getting back-to-back birdies, I think it's 3 and 4, right? 4 played is the 13th easiest hole. 3 is a par 5, right? So it played to the 16th easiest hole of the day. There's just not a lot of those, right? Some golf courses will even have like back-to-back par 5s. So based on what we're looking at, right, this fantasy score is not my favorite. It would either be an under on strokes or an under on bogeys. So maybe when we end up seeing the prize picks board, I'll have a better idea for it. But let me see what you guys have in terms of projections. So let's see. Rory and Cam are at 68.5. Okay. And then I'm assuming some of the other guys like Minwoo, right, are probably at like 69 or 69.5. You're going to fade Rory for sure. I understand that. He's definitely a head case, right? He blew up on hole 17. I was right there to see it. I should say 16 over there when he had that triple bogey. David Skins is 72 on prize picks. Yeah. I understand that. That's for damn sure. A lot of these seem to be bumping, right? Because this board is definitely a little bit optimistic. This doesn't seem like a terrible combo. What do they have JT posting at? If you guys have JT posting up on prize picks, go ahead and let me know. The guy in the premium Discord already nuked the Underdog board. Congrats. He's not doing a live stream at this time. So congrats to him, Asian. He's got more time than I have right now, right? They posted the board literally as I went live. You seem like a dick sucker, though. So I'm going to go ahead and ban you so you can go ahead and suck off your buddy, though. Kevin Yu, 70.5. Okay, it's good to know. Ricky at 69. That's probably where I'd put him to. EVR 70. Makes a lot of sense. No post on prize picks. Okay, so if we're trying to find a comp for him, I think 69 for Ricky is probably a pretty good comp. They're in that same tier player. I'd say Poston, if anything, is more consistent than what you have with Ricky. The added side effect there is that, right, Ricky's playing better this week. So they've got him at, 69.5 strokes? I don't hate that under. So I'm going to throw it in the shopping cart for right now. But yeah, this over on David Skins, right, it's an entire stroke and a half discrepancy. I don't hate it whatsoever. So let's go ahead and put that in there and try and find some value to attack. And hopefully not suck some dick of some touts out here like that other guy was down in chat. My premium was already nuked the Underdog board. Like, congrats, dude. Like, you have your slips in. Do you want a fucking cookie for having slips in? Like, there's 12 hours until the round starts. Like, good for you. I love that. When people suck people's dicks as touts, it cracks me up, right? I'm not the type of guy to go out there and like beg for engagement on stuff. Go out there and be like, oh, look at what my guys did winning in my community. Those people pick their own lineups, right? Like, I understand doing that to some extent, but the level of dick sucking out there is crazy to me. I can never do it myself, right? And I'm a fucking tout saying that, and I don't understand it. It's wild to me that people don't hype themselves up for things that they do in terms of achievements and would rather give other people credit for them, especially when they're not directly tailing what people do. So that's all I'll say about that. And we got the JT posted under. Tom Kim doesn't have a super late tee time, so he's potentially a target that we could take. I don't love the 4.5 mark for him, though, and I don't love the 69 strokes. I think 69 strokes is probably a pretty accurate projection. I wouldn't have him higher or lower than that. So I'll probably avoid him just because I think the projections make sense. I think Rory has a decent tee time, too, right? The strokes prop is lower on Underdog than what we have on prize picks. So that's probably the only suboptimal thing there. So I'm probably fading it, right? 5 birdies, right, is also probably a little bit too high. It's just not the best spot to attack. Keith Mitchell has elite level course history. I think if anything here, right, I take his under on strokes. Let's at least throw that in here. I'm not sure if we're going to take it, but let's go ahead and at least throw it in there. Guys like Justin Rose, I know he has an early tee time. It's worth noting that, guys, Justin Rose, I know he shot like +1 or +2 today, but he had like 6 birdies on his round. He also had 2 triple bogeys. So I think a lot of people will look at his round and think that he played a whole lot worse than he did in reality. So I know, right, early starter, right, bottom end of the board, JT, I almost called him JT Poston, but Justin Rose is not playing half bad golf. If he's on the prize picks board, go ahead and let me know if they have a projection for Rose. I would guess that he's at the same number, but you never know with prize picks. Maybe they have him down at 69, or maybe he's up at 70. If he's at 69, I'm probably going to take him over here on the underdog side. I'm going to go over here to the DraftKings Sportsbook, bring up the Cognizant Classic, and I'm going to do a little bit of line shopping based on where they have stuff at. Doesn't look like they have stroke stuff up yet. So let me go ahead and bring up FanDuel and see what they have up. If they don't have anything up yet, then so be it, right? We'll go without our odds to compare to. Let's see. We do have odds over here on FanDuel, so we at least have that to use as a data point. What I'm going to look at here is where they have some of these mid-tier players, right? So like a Poston, for example, like they have a -150 on under, right? 69.5. That's really all they needed to see. Let me look at Keith Mitchell now. And we're going to find another fade, right, for some of those later tee times, right? The guys that are like rookies, right, not used to being in this situation. We look, Matt Fitzpatrick is -140. Was he 69, right? Did they have him bumped down? Yeah, they did, right? They have him bumped down one already. Let's see where they have Keith Mitchell. Hopefully they have him up. Let's see. So -125. Okay, whatever. Let's see. So they don't have Minwoo up for strokes. I wish they had him at 69.5. That'd be a pretty sweet line. So we've got those two for unders. That's right. They don't have Keith up, do they? Actually, they do, right? But he's only -125. Let's take Keith out of the slip for now, I guess. What was Keith's tee time, too? Wasn't he a little bit later in terms of tee time? Yeah, he's over there at like 10:40. Let's stick to these two for now. So let's go with this for our first slip, right? This under on JT Poston, this over on David Skins. Not a crazy big slip, right? But we have somebody that's -150 for the under over here in JT Poston. And then Skins is a whole stroke and a half higher, right? Over there on the prize pick side. Let me see if they have a Rose projection. 69.5 for Rose. Okay, so it's at the same number. And then 69.5 for Mitchell. Yeah, seems about right? Especially compared to like the sportsbook odds. Let me look at Rosie. Honestly, based on how Rose was playing, like, yeah, he's even money on FanDuel. I don't know if that's like the right projection, though. The reason why I say that is look at his round, right? So he had 1, 2, 3, 4 birdies, right? And then 2 triple bogeys. So when you look at his shots gained, right? And you look at round 3, it says -5 shots gained on approach. That's because of these 2 holes, right? These 2 holes in particular, right? Hole 15, right? He had the water ball that led to a lot of that. Hole number 12, he missed in this bunker and then just kept hacking it out there in the sand bunker. I don't know. It's just, I'm considering it at the very least, right? So we take these 2 as our first slip out there. And let me see if we have this posted in the Discord. So if anyone's in the Discord and can post that prize picks board, let me know. If not, probably not going to have anything I can do here on live stream. So that would be a little bit unfortunate, but we'll see what we can do. Stanger, potential to continue his improvement. He was -5 on the day yesterday. Okay, 3rd best in the field. And if you include the birdie 8-footer finishing the second round, well, not sure what you're saying there at the end. That's a little bit of a word salad in those last 2 lines. But he's -5 in the day if you include the birdie finishing his second round early today. So you're saying, right, just his normal round, right? Obviously, he finished the round this morning. Okay. I mean, I understand that. I think he's a good player, right? He's one of those new Corn Ferry Tour guys that I think is playing particularly well. If we take a look at the shots gained metrics, I think that's going to tell us a whole lot, right, about how he's playing in this specific week. And where's he at? I honestly don't know his score. I haven't been following him very much. Jimmy Stanger, right? He's like -6, right? Something up in that range. Yeah, -6 through the first 3 rounds. Shots gained metrics, pretty balanced, right? He's losing off the tee, but he is a long player. I have to say, right, his driving distance, he's 311 yards. That's number 7 in the field in terms of driving distance. So the fact that he's losing off the tee is likely due to water balls, right? Is likely due to his driving accuracy. I think in Showdown, this is the perfect type of play, right? He's gaining on approach. He's decent in all 4 stat categories. And even though he's losing with the off the tee play, he's extremely long, right? It's this accuracy, right, that's catching up to him. Maybe you catch him on a day where he doesn't hit water balls. He goes out there and he gets the positive end of that volatility. Totally understand that. So sorry I didn't catch your comment before, but I think that's a sharp play for sure. Let's do at least one more underdog play here, and then probably do some prize picks afterwards because I don't have the board to look at. Again, guys, if you're hoping that I'm going to go through some prize pick stuff, you know what to do. If not, I'll just post it for my Patreon peeps. That's totally fine when I can get that done. Let's try and find at least a couple more props to take. So Shane Lowry, right? I understand wanting to fade him because he's a later tee time, but he's got an elite level course history here. So I would be a little bit hesitant to try and bet against him. The sort of players that I'd be looking to fade, right? We obviously had David Skins that we took an over on before, but it's the more inexperienced type of players. So Austin Eckroat, I know we have him on the board, right? He could be a potential fade, whether it's for strokes or over here for bogeys. I would imagine that Prize Picks probably has them at like 70.5 strokes. In terms of greens regulation or fairways, you could also consider taking an under on either of those metrics. Once again, he's probably at like 12 greens on Prize Picks. He's probably at like 9 fairways over there on the site as well. So let's at least keep him as a book in here from one of our fades. It's just going to be which prop that we're going to take. So for now, I'm going to put strokes in there. Maybe he has a little water ball that puts him offline, and then try and find an AM tee time or at least an earlier tee time to try and find an under on. So I wish they had Tom Kim at 69.5. That would be a clear under I'm looking at. We always have Justin Rose we could take. So I'll throw him in there for now, but it's highly unlikely that this is the combination we enter. Ricky Fowler, 69 strokes. Again, I wish it was 69.5. Then I'd feel a whole lot better about taking him. Tom Hoagie. We've got it, 69.5 strokes. Let me see what they've got good old Hoagie at. He's been playing really well of late. Like over the last few months, he's been a lot better than most people realize. So he's at even money at 69.5 strokes. I suppose I understand that, but let's see what else we can work with here. So we've got the Rose one locked in that we can potentially take. We do have Benny Ann with an early tee time, and he's probably also at even money. He's actually at minus 140 towards the under. So he might be a move for an under, right? His ball striking has been on point this week, which is kind of what we're hoping for with the Benny Ann. If I go out there and show you guys how he's been playing so far, what is he? He's like -6, -5 right now. Yeah. Oh, actually -4 through the first 3 rounds. He's gaining off the tee. He's gaining on approach. He's losing slightly around the green and a slight gainer with the putter, right? This is a very repeatable sort of skill set, and he's got the early tee time for us. So it's a good chance that this is the prop slip that we're going with here. They've got Eckert at 70 and his birdies at 4, so they have him at the same number. Oof. So I was hoping it was going to be a little bit of line value, but I still might take it. I mean, I still might take it over there in Prize Picks too, frankly. I know he's a little bit more established than what we have with David Skins, right? Over there to 72 stroke projection. Let me see what FanDuel has him at. They probably have him at 69.5. See, they've got him at 70.5 strokes. Now I know, right, he's minus 125 towards the under, but that would be a push right over there at 70 strokes. So I'm at least going to keep this in the shopping cart for right now, but let's see what else we could work with. So the other end of this, argument here is that those PM guys might have that delay. So I don't want every slip that we enter to have fades in it. So maybe we do try and find another under to enter over here with Benny Ann. Let's see. Another thing worth noting is that guy who was talking about having like all those things posted already and having like props to enter. Your tout could not have possibly looked through the entire board yet. There's no way. You have like 8 projections for every player and you think you did your due diligence. Whoever that was, good luck with your props tomorrow. I don't think they're going to go well. Benny Ann's at 69. Okay, that's cool. And then 12.5 for greens regulation. I like the value there at 69.5. And Martin has us absolutely clutch with the post on the prize pick stuff. There we go. Appreciate you, Martin. You're obviously Martin's an absolute chiller, and on top of that, we've watched some golf together before at the U.S. Open. So clutch, appreciate it. Let's see, 4 birdies for a lot of your studs. Your top end players at 4.5, including a Matt Fitzpatrick, which a little bit surprising to me, and also surprising to see Rory over there at 5 birdies. Let's look at the strokes board. So strokes board looks like, again, we've actually gone over a lot of these numbers, so those aren't surprising. But yeah, David Skin's at 72. They're showing him no respect. Rory McIlroy, 68.5, 70 for some of those mid-tier players. What else do we got? Greens and reg board, 13.5. Oh, wow. They've got, I guess for AMT times, you know what? Prize Picks has given me an idea here. For AMT times for over on greens and reg, it is going to be a vibe 100%. So I appreciate it, Martin. That's going to help us a whole lot out with what we pick here, actually. So Benny Ann, what's his green and reg mark? Now I'm starting to get curious here because I can find the right player. So 12.5. And what was he on Prize Picks? They might not have had him posted. They've also got him at 12.5. Let's look at Fitzy now, right? Is Fitzy at 12.5? Probably not, but if he is, that'd be a really good target. He's at 13, so that's a 0.5 discrepancy. So let's put that in the back of our mind here. So they've got 13 on Keith Mitchell, 13 on Tom Kim. Okay. 12.5 on a Rose. What is Rose at? Let's see. Doesn't look like they have Justin Rose up, I'm guessing, out there for greens regulation. Actually, or I'm just looking at the wrong post. Let me see. Yeah, no greens and regular for Justin Rose, but AMT time at 12.5. I'm at least going to consider that for some exposure. Let's keep going down here. So Minwoo, they've got at 12.5. He isn't PMT time, so it doesn't fit that narrative that we're looking for, right? Trying to take the guys in the best conditions. JT Poston's at 13. Russell Henley's at 12.5. Ooh, that might be one. He's a high green regulation player. And looking at his projection over there on Prize Picks, he's at 13 greens, right? So that's another 0.5 discrepancy. So let's at least consider that one. Jake Knapp's at 12.5. What is he on Prize Picks? He's also 12.5. So okay, that's not the kind of value that we're looking for. Cameron Young, 13.5. David Skins we're not taking under any circumstances for a green regulation prop. Let's look at Bo Hostler, 12.5. Yeah, I probably don't take Bo. Bo's a little bit too volatile for my liking. This Russell Henley, he doesn't have my favorite tee time, but 12.5 greens for Russell Henley is definitely a little bit low. The only other projection I might take over him would be this Matt Fitzpatrick. The main reason being is that we kind of know that he's going to get good conditions, right? We know that Matt Fitzpatrick is going to be playing with next to no wind out there. And based on these pin locations, which we didn't look at these before, they're tucked in a lot of spots. I don't think you can be too aggressive to a lot of these pin locations. So I think in terms of a GIR average, it's probably going to be right about what we had today, probably right about at that 12 number. So I wish this was 12.5 for Matty Fitz, because for him to gain a green to the field and cover is something that I would feel confident trying to tail him on. But for him to have to gain a green to just tie the field, right, and have to gain 2 greens to the field to go out there and cover might be too much to ask, which is why I like this Russell Henley prop a little bit more, right? It's why I was leaning towards that. The unfortunate side effect of that is that he's got the later tee time. So I was hoping that we'd find better value on some of these green props, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get our wish. Like if we wanted to take an AMT time for 12.5 greens, it'd have to be like Bo Hostler, right? Like I know he's an AMT timer. He's 12.5. Justin Rose would, I guess, be the other guy that you can consider taking. So if we go over here and go to Justin Rose, right, he's got one of the earliest tee times of the day. The unfortunate part is I don't think he's covered this, right? He only hit 5 greens today. Holy shit. He hit 14 in round 2 and 13 in round 1. You know what? We're gonna buy into the Justin Rose bounce back, right? He had 2 really good days to start the week. He's played this golf course a lot in the past. He had a horrible day today when it came to his approach play. we're going to enter these two first slips. So this is going to be the other underdog slip that we're entering out here for round 4. And next up is to take a look at the prize picks board. So we're going to go through, give you guys at least one slip over there in prize picks. And afterwards, we'll talk some hard rock bet as well. So in terms of prize picks, it's going to be the same kind of thought process, right? We want guys going off early if we're going to be taking overs on birdies or unders on strokes. And we're going to want a PMT time if we're going to go out there and fade a player. The first thing that catches my eye, I thought it was 4 birdies for a Minwoo. I was going to be like, over for 4 birdies looks pretty good. He's at 4.5, unfortunately. So no dice on that one. Let's look at the strokes. Pretty accurate stroke stuff. I'd say the same thing. 69 for Matty Fitz. Like that's probably where I'd have his projection. Let's see, 69.5 for Corey Connors, 69.5 for Keith Mitchell. Okay, all kind of the props that I'd be looking at. I don't know, this prize picks board, I agree with a whole lot more than what we have with Underdog. So if I don't see anything over here I want to enter, I might just avoid it entirely. Let me look at the fairways. So they've got Cam Young at the field average at 9 fairways. I think if anything, I'd lean under. And then they only have, 7 players up total. Guys like Tom Kim Henley and Corey Connors up there at 10 fairways. Guys like Rory McIlroy, Chris Kirk, and Shane Lowry. He's got them over there at 9.5 fairways. This is an ugly-ass board. I'm not all about this. I like it for comparison's sake. I have to say I agree with almost all these projections over here in prize picks. Great for using to compare to Underdog and try and find value. But geez Louise. Just, not the best for trying to find plays yourself. So I think if anything, we're still going to try and find you guys some sort of pairing to take here. Like, it's so ugly. I don't even think I want to take it. I was going to say an over on like Rose birdies at 4. I was going to say like an over on Corey Connors birdies at 4 birdies too. But I don't love those. In fact, I don't know if I can advocate for taking those. So let me continue to look through these screenshots, see if there's anything we can possibly take. But it definitely seems like Underdog has the better value. The projections that are more easy to leverage, in my opinion, which is just an opinion, right? I could be totally wrong about this, but if anything, based on the prize picks board, I think it would be unders on some of these greens in regulation. Players that I'd consider for an under in green in regulation would be an under on Keith Mitchell at 13.5. In fact, that's a prop we'll go ahead and put into the shopping cart right now. It would be an under on Keith Mitchell at 13.5 fairways. And then potentially an under on Rory at 9.5 fairways. Like, let me look at his stats through the first 3 rounds, right? Let's take a look at how he's actually done through the first 3 days. So where are you at, Rory? I know we went over in round 1 because he completely screwed me out there for Thursday. Round 2 hit 10, and then today hit 9. Well, yeah, that's not ideal. So we might stay away from that one, right? He's actually been hitting some fairways this week, but that under on Keith Mitchell greens is feeling like absolute money. So let me see how Keith has been hitting in the approaches this week. So today he hit 16, hit a bunch of greens. Good for you. Then he hit 11 on Friday and 13 out there for Thursday. So he's gone under on 2 of 3 rounds. Yeah, so Keith Mitchell I feel pretty good about out there with that under. So we'll keep Keith in there and try and find somebody to pair him with. So we could go in under on one of these PM guys, right? So what we could try to do is try and find one of those later starters and fade them under some of that pressure. So Shane Lowry, I think if there's any spot to fade him, it might be for greens regulation. He's really skilled around the green, right? He's the kind of player that's going to get up and down more often than he's not. So strokes fades, those kind of things, even fantasy score fades, I'm not super thrilled about out there with Shane Lowry because he is really creative, right? He's going to bail himself out all that time. But a greens fade, right? Maybe his ball striking's off is something I'd be a lot more keen to. But let me double check. Yeah, he's probably going to be the play under 13 greens of regulation. But let me do one last double check through the board. Yeah, that is probably what it's going to be. So yeah, this prize picks board, I wanted to give you guys maybe 1, maybe 2 slips that we could go with, but it's just going to be that one. So it's an under on Keith at 13.5 greens and also an under on Shane Lowry at 13 greens regulation. That's only going to pay you 2.5x. Prize picks has absolutely shit payouts at this point. which is just another reason to go over here and play an Underdog. And I have absolutely no affiliation to Underdog. In fact, they took it out of my state, right? They've gone out there, limited my account when I was out there playing PGA or NFL props. And I still say that, right? They just have the better product, right? Objectionably between the two. So go ahead, enter that slip with Keith Mitchell and Shane Lowry. But it'll be these two slips over here for Sunday golf, right? It'll be this Justin Rose over on greens, the under on Benny Ann, 2 early tee times that I think will get after it. And then down here with our other slip, it's an under on Poston going off early, and then an over on David Skins because he's playing over there with that pressure. So that'll be it for the live stream from the Underdog and Prize Picks perspective. But now what I'm going to do is bring up Hard Rock bets. So let's go ahead and bring that up. If you guys are an Underdog or Prize Picks better, hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of an idea on how to attack the slate. What I want to do now, though, is look through some of the matchups, and hopefully they have them up because there's a chance they don't. So, okay, looks like we have at least something posted. Let me share my screen for you guys. All right, so they've got some 18-hole match bets up. They also have a bunch of 2 balls that they seem to be posting. And then they have the outrights over here on the other tab. So we're obviously going to focus on some of the matchups in terms of this live stream. And tomorrow morning, if you guys have been paying attention to my Twitter page, I've been posting a few props over on Hard Rock Bet that you can take for props. So on top of like matchup bets that we talk up here in the live stream, sometimes they've been posting birdie props. They've been posting eagle props over there on Hard Rock Bet. They've had quite a bit of value to them. So keep an eye out for my Twitter for some of that exposure tomorrow morning. But I guess what we'll look at here is some of the matchups. So in terms of an 18-hole matchup, they have Corey versus Bo. It's a pretty close one. I think if anything, I would take Corey Connors. We've got Benny Ann early tee time versus another early tee time in JT Poston. That's also a pretty, close one, I would say. This Fitzpatrick versus Pavon, I would definitely take Matt Fitzpatrick. So let me go ahead and at least keep that over there in the shopping cart. They have Mitchell versus Eric Van Rooyen. That's pretty close. McIlroy versus Cam Young, just probably a little bit too much juice for me to go out there and take that one. Henley versus Tom Kim. Ooh, I can get Tom Kim at plus money. I'm at least going to keep those 2 in the shopping cart. I definitely like those 2 leans. Fowler versus Alex Noren, I'd probably take that too. You know what? Because we don't have to worry about the push on some of these 18-hole match bets, I'm probably going to bet all of these. And the Andrew Novak too. You know what? We're going to get a lot of action down on these 18-hole match bets. So I'm at least going to bet these 4. Minwoo versus Lowry. Minwoo's playing from behind. Lowry's playing from ahead. You know what? Let's make it 5. Let's go with all of these. So I'm going to bet all of these. Let me go ahead and sign into my Hard Rock Bet account. And we're going to bet them right now. Live here on live stream. So let me go ahead, type in my security code so that we can get logged into this shit. Oh, shit. I wasn't even typing it in. Absolute dirt moment. Okay, there we go. Now I can share my screen so you guys can see this shit. I think I'm going to put $50 on all of those. Like, I'm not going to change my unit size based on any of them. Yeah, let's do that. Actually, or I'm going to do 25. I don't want to go crazy on these. Yeah, $238. That would be my potential payout on it. Let's do that. So I'm not going crazy unit-wise on these. These are these are all going to be relatively light bets when it's all things considered. But definitely things I'm going to go ahead and mix in. So we got the Minwoo Lee versus Shane Lowry. I'm taking the Minwoo Lee side. Andrew Novak versus Kevin Yu. I'm taking the Andrew Novak side. Ricky Fowler versus Alex Noren. I'm taking Ricky Fowler. Tom Kim versus Russell Henley. I'm taking Tom Kim. And then also Matt Fitzpatrick versus Pavon. I'm taking Matt Fitzpatrick. Look at the cash out on this. This is a bullshit ass cash out, right? I took Minwoo Lee at 60-1. They're only going to give me $400 out there for a cash out. You don't have a deal. I'm going to ride out there with my boy Minwoo Lee. So that's it for the Hard Rock Bet side. They don't have a lot of stuff posted. Again, check out my Twitter/X tomorrow morning for all of those birdie props that they're probably going to post. And there'll be some sort of exposure I'm posting over there on Twitter. And we've got 2 of 2 out there for the plays that I've posted for free. just go ahead and make it 3 for 3 for this weekend. So that's all I've got, guys. We'll go over any questions if you have any down in chat. If not, we're going to hop on out of here. Looks like we're good in terms of questions, so going to go ahead and cut it off here. Appreciate the support here as per usual, and go ahead and have yourself a Sunday with your exposure, whether it's for DFS, Showdown, prop betting. Hopefully go out there and you have yourself a Sunday and make your boy proud out here. I'll be out here all the day on the course. I'll be with some family, some friends throughout the day. If you're out there on the course, come ahead and say hi to me if you see me, and potentially go out there and get a beer together. So should be a fun one. Leaderboard is absolutely packed. Let's go out there and make some money, guys.